And you asked whether this legitimizes rape. I would like to go one step further and connect it with another debate that has been happening, with women, and that is the whole aspect of rape within marriage. So, are we saying that rape cannot take place within marriage? So, so it's a double-edged sword. So yes, I totally disagree that this should be there. I also fully agree with what Trisha said about the whole consensual aspect. They are saying that it was consensual sex, but she was a minor, and he was the manager of the school. So just look at the power dynamics there. I mean, how is she expected to say no? She probably wouldn't even been able to do that with a teacher. Moreover, a manager. Moreover, a priest. I think you should understand that in the Catholic Church, the priests are always held. They're always revered, and we are always taught that the priest is somebody who stands in place of God. So for a child to be able to defy a priest, somebody who's a manager, it's extremely difficult. So there is no way that this could be looked on as consensual sex, for various reasons: the power dynamics, the age factor, the fact that he had a fiduciary relationship with her because he was a priest. He was a member of the school management, so he actually was supposed to protect her. So there are so many things that go against him. So definitely, I would disagree, and I also would like to say that. One was, like I said, the whole aspect of rape within marriage, and the second is this whole aspect of are women always to be defined only by marriage? I mean, is that something that, I mean, is that the be end? And
well, let me ask you this question. I have a question from one of the viewers who say, why are you still referring to him as a priest when he isn't a priest anymore? Haven't you had enough of this religion bashing? And my problem is with this, is that he was a priest when he committed the crime. He abused his position when he committed the crime. And his crime needs to constantly be looked at through that lens. Astrid?
yes, I would agree. And to be quite honest, the way I see it in terms of punitive, see, I've been looking at the CBCI policy for it's called the CBCI Child Protection Policy and Procedures, and it was brought out in 2015. And I didn't have time to study it in detail, but just to say that the focus always seems to be on punishment. So that is one aspect. And so in this case, they removed him as a priest, and I'm guessing he would be removed from the school, and all that could have happened. But I also think there's another aspect to it which people don't look at enough, and that's the whole aspect of who is going to care for the survivor. So as long as he was a priest, and as long as this happened, he was a priest. According to me, the church has a great responsibility to the survivor. And I was just looking at the policy, and just to read out, for instance, one of the general guidelines that it says is that the institution, so in this case the school, and the church school, will see that children who are victims are cared for by professionals and by responsible persons who have the ability to give proper care. So that's one. And then it goes on into more details. Another thing which for me was shocking in this case, like here it says in this policy, the subtitle is when to report. And it says abuse cases are to be reported immediately and not as an afterthought after weeks and months. So for me, the big question is what happened when she went to deliver the child? There were a whole lot of adults who were involved in that. Okay, people who were there in that hospital, which apparently is a Catholic hospital. So why did they not report the case? So for me, that's another question. Why didn't they? I mean, according to POCSO, even if you know about a case and you don't report, you are liable. So for me, that's another issue, and I have great difficulty with this.
Well, Trisha, tell me something purely from the eyes of the law. Is given that the accused, the convicted here, is, and we can call him now rapist because he has been convicted of the crime, and the survivor both have approached the court saying that they consensually want to get married. Is there a precedent to the court granting? Is the court likely to grant this permission?
So, like I mentioned, the three cases that I cited above, there is precedent. In the past, when both parties say they consent to getting married, there is precedent. In Delhi High Court, there's been precedent. There's also been precedent in case of a minor who was a 15-year-old who in Delhi court, where when she was a minor, in fact, they allowed her to marry the rapist, and the rapist subsequently got bail and ended up living in the bride's family house. So I forget when this case happened, but it was in the 2000 period. So, I think it's to be looked at from multiple ways. One, as a minor, you are not legally allowed to give consent to anything. Your guardians have to step in. As a minor, when it comes to marriage, you are governed by religious personal laws. So that means it's not the same uniform, right? So it's not uniform uniform criminal code. So to those who don't understand, if you commit a crime, regardless of your religion, you're subject to the same criminal provisions. But when it comes to cases of marriage, divorce, you are guided by religious personal laws. So we do see child marriage happening, even though they say, it's a crime. We do see child marriage still happening because religious personal laws allow for it when your guardian gives you permission. So if the guardian gives permission, if the witness turns hostile, right? So very often the courts will say, okay, for the interest of the girl's well-being, because who will marry her now that she's a survivor of rape? So it's a lot of these problematic notions of society that come together to further victimize a survivor and her family.
Yes.
In this case, it's like even if the child gives consent,
Trisha is very,
how do you
very
entertain
politely,
that?
yes. What
How do you
Trisha is very
entertain
politely calling problematic societal ideas is just patriarchal bullcrap, really, where you just keep feeding it over and over into the ideas of these young girls. Now imagine this has been happening to this girl from the time she was 14 and she's 18 now. This is our only reality. Second question, Trisha, is it likely that even now, I know POCSO is among the most ironclad laws we have in this country. If the girl now chooses to marry this horrific man, can she withdraw the case? Can this be reversed in any way? Can he walk out of jail? Is that a possibility?
So he's been convicted, right? What would in most likelihood happen is, again, this feels like, we're going down this disastrous, excuse my language, shithole. But what would most likely happen is he would get granted bail for a few days, and then it would be just a bail for long-term period, and then his sentence would be reduced and he would be out in society living. So since the case has already been tried, he's moved to higher courts to get permission to marry. He's not moved to higher courts to overturn his conviction. So he's been convicted. He is a rapist in the eyes of the court. What would happen is he would be granted bail if this insidious cycle carries on, and then the nature of the bail from 2 months would extend to 2 years, and so on. Yeah, it's horrible.
Dr. Astrid Lobo, here's my question to you is this, and for those people who are yelling at us saying, why are you bashing religion? Let me point out that 2 out of 3 of the women on this panel are from the religion that we are supposedly bashing. What we're doing is protecting girls and women and young children from the kind of sexual abuse that we have seen, which is systemic wherever men have been given the power of religion across religious lines. We've talked about Babas, we've talked about, Maulanas, we've talked about Catholic priests. They doesn't seem, the actual religion doesn't seem to matter. What matters really is the power that is granted via religion to people who want to misuse it. Does this, in your opinion, Dr. Astrid, send a wrong message to those within the system who are already abusing children?
Sorry, you frozen.
Okay. Does this send a wrong message to those within the system who are also indulging or who are also abusing children, saying, hey, there is a way out, there's a way to make this go away?
Oh, yes, very definitely. I think if you allow something like this to happen, I think it kind of paves the way for rapes to happen with impunity, that, you can just get away with it by marrying the survivor. I also want to say that, just to respond to what you said about bashing religion, I don't think, at least speaking for myself, I don't think I'm bashing religion. I just think that I'm looking at structures within a religious structures. And I would also say, speaking for the Catholic Church, that they do have good policies in place. My question is, why are you not implementing them? Okay. And if you don't implement them, where is the accountability? Who are you accountable to? So this is my question. So it has got nothing to do with religion. It's got to do with the, the policies and procedures which you say that you want to, follow. Then they should be implemented. So that's my question to that. And coming back to what you said, yes, I definitely agree that this would cause rape to increase. Also, the whole question of we don't know under what circumstances this consent is being got. I don't know what you want to say. And the question is that this person is a young woman. She'll have to spend the rest of her life with this person who is ultimately a rapist. To me, it seems like a prolonged extension of the trauma of the rape. At least that's the way I would see it.
I also consider the fact, let's assume, what Trisha said doesn't happen and he doesn't receive a reduced sentence. He's serving 20 years, which with reduced time might become 12 years or might become 15 years. This is the amount of time this girl is going to pine for him from outside of jail while he's inside of jail. We're talking about an 18-year-old here. It's a completely ridiculous, sickening prospect. Everything about this case should worry us so much. It should really worry us so much. And remember, when you send your children to school, your assumption is that your children are safe in school, that school is a second home. Parents normally worry about the distance between home and school. But once a child is in school, you say, okay, my child is safe now, he's reached school or she's reached school. We can't have a situation where children are being, preyed upon inside of school by people who have power over them. This is what we're fighting here. The fact that here was an individual who had power given to him by religion and by the school. He abused that power to sexually assault a minor. He got that minor pregnant. He got the minor's father to take the blame. And when the investigators figured it out and he finally went to jail, now he wants 2 months leave from jail to marry that minor who has just turned 18. The whole thing is atrocious. And while he has been defrocked by the Catholic Church and he is no longer a priest, we must make our voices loud and clear about things like this to make sure it doesn't happen again. We're not okay with this. We're not okay with priests who have power and positions of power over our children and over people who are invariably in need of help. These are the people who turn to the church. These are the people who turn to religion. We should not tolerate anyone who misuses that power. I want to thank people like Dr. Astrid Lobo and Trisha Shetty who stand with families of those minors who have been abused, of children and women who have been abused. And I believe that each and every one of us as citizens must make it very clear that no religion, no power, no office is big enough to allow someone to get away with something like this. We do hope, of course, that the court is very clear about the fact that this individual, this 18-year-old woman, receives counseling and care and rehabilitation, which is what she is due. And it doesn't grant this plea in a hurry. Thanks for watching. We'll be back at 8 o'clock today to consider what's happening with our economy in light of COVID. And if there's anything that can be done or should be done to stop the downward spiral of the Indian economy. At 8 o'clock tonight, please join us. Thanks for watching.